The morning sun barely kissed the cracked walls of Olivia's one-room apartment in Yoba when 3 sharp knocks rattled her door. She froze, her hands still covered in soap suds from washing her only nurse uniform. It was 6 a.m., too early for rent collectors, too quiet for neighborhood trouble. "Who is it?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Miss Olivia Mensah?" The voice was male, deep, polished. "Not from around here." She dried her hands on her wrapper and opened the door a crack. A tall man in an immaculate black suit stood there, his shoes so shiny they reflected the morning light. Behind him, a sleek black Mercedes waited, engine purring. Her heart hammered. "Police? Debt collectors? I'm Mr. Okonkwo. I represent the Nwosu family." He handed her a cream-colored envelope with gold embossing. "Mrs. Grace Nwosu asked me to find you personally." Olivia's breath caught. Mrs. Grace. The homeless woman. For 6 months, Olivia had found the frail old woman huddled outside the rundown community clinic where she worked. Every morning before her shift, Olivia would check her wounds, change her bandages, share her small breakfast of bread and tea. She never asked for anything in return. She never even learned the woman's full name. 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Grace had disappeared. Olivia assumed the worst. Is she alive?" Olivia whispered. Mr. Okonkwo's expression softened. "Very much so. And she wants to see you. Immediately." I have work. My shift starts at 7. "That's been handled. Please, Miss Mensah. It's urgent." Olivia looked down at her faded uniform, her worn-out slippers. She thought of her supervisor's angry face if she was late again. She thought of the bills stacked on her table, the landlord's threats, the empty pot in her kitchen. But she thought of Mrs. Grace's grateful smile, her whispered prayers, her bony hand squeezing Olivia's whenever the pain became unbearable. "Let me change," Olivia said quietly. 20 minutes later, she sat in the back of that Mercedes, her palms sweating against the leather seats. They drove through parts of Lagos she'd only seen on TV, Victoria Island, with its towering glass buildings and manicured lawns. Palm trees lined streets so clean they seemed fake. The car stopped in front of a mansion that looked like it belonged in a magazine. White pillars. Fountain in the driveway. Security gates that whispered open. Olivia's stomach twisted. What is happening? Mr. Okonkwo led her through marble hallways, past artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Staff in crisp uniforms nodded respectfully as they passed. Finally, they reached a sunlit room overlooking a pool that sparkled like diamonds. And there, in a wheelchair, sat Mrs. Grace. But this wasn't the broken woman Olivia knew. Her hair was styled. Her skin glowed. Her traditional iro and buba were made of the finest silk. Mrs. Grace's eyes filled with tears when she saw Olivia. "My daughter," she whispered. "You saved my life. Now let me save yours." What do you think Mrs. Grace means? Could this homeless woman really be connected to all this wealth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This story is about to get even more incredible. Olivia's legs nearly gave out. She gripped the doorframe, her mind spinning. "Mrs. Grace, I don't understand. This house, these people. Sit, my child. Please." Mrs. Grace gestured to the velvet chair beside her. Her voice was stronger now, nothing like the weak whispers Olivia remembered from the streets. Olivia sat slowly, feeling completely out of place in her simple cotton dress. Mrs. Grace reached for her hand. 6 months ago, I made a terrible mistake. I trusted the wrong people. My late husband's relatives. They wanted control of the Nwosu empire, wanted me declared mentally unfit so they could take everything. She paused, her grip tightening on Olivia's fingers. They drugged me. Made me appear confused, sick. Then they dumped me on those streets like garbage, hoping I'd die quietly and they could claim I'd wandered off in my dementia. Her voice cracked. I was the wife of Emmanuel Nwosu, owner of Nwosu Oil and Gas, Nwosu Real Estate, Nwosu Holdings. Billions. Olivia. And they threw me away like trash. Olivia's hand flew to her mouth. She'd heard of Nwosu Holdings, everyone in Nigeria had. Billboards, news reports, charity galas. But you were so sick. The infections, the fever. Because they'd been poisoning me for months before they abandoned me. Mrs. Grace's eyes hardened. While I lay dying on those streets, they were already dividing my husband's legacy. But then you came. She lifted Olivia's hand to her cheek. Every morning, you appeared like an angel. You cleaned my wounds when they festered. You brought me food when I was too weak to beg. You prayed over me when I wanted to die. Tears streamed down her face. You never asked who I was. You never wanted anything. You just cared. Anyone would have. No. Mrs. Grace's voice rang out sharp. Do you know how many people walked past me every single day? Hundreds. Thousands. They saw a dirty homeless woman and turned away. Some laughed. Some spat. But you stopped. A poor nurse who could barely feed herself. You stopped and shared what little you had. Mr. Okonkwo stepped forward, placing a leather folder on the glass table. 3 weeks ago, he continued, Mrs. Grace's loyal driver, one of the few who never stopped searching for her, finally found her. He recognized her despite everything. We got her to a private hospital immediately. Mrs. Grace nodded. The doctors said without your care, I would have died weeks earlier. The infections alone should have killed me. But you kept me alive long enough to be found. She opened the folder. Inside were photographs, Olivia treating Mrs. Grace's wounds, sharing her breakfast, covering her with her own sweater on cold mornings. Someone had been watching, documenting. My security team has been investigating everything, Mrs. Grace said, her voice turning cold as ice. And now, my dear Olivia, I'm going to reclaim what's mine. But I can't do it alone. She looked directly into Olivia's eyes. I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who proved their character when they thought no one was watching. She paused. I'm offering you a position as my personal healthcare manager, with a salary of 15 million naira per year, full benefits, and a place to live in this house. Olivia's world tilted. 15 million naira. That was more than she'd earn in 20 years at the clinic. Mrs. Grace, I'm just a nurse. I don't know anything about. You know about loyalty. You know about compassion. You know about doing what's right even when it costs you. Mrs. Grace's smile was fierce. That's rarer than any business degree. The question is, are you brave enough to stand beside me while I take down the vultures who tried to bury me alive? Can you believe this twist? What would you do in Olivia's position? Would you accept this life-changing offer? Comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Olivia barely slept that first night in the mansion's guest wing. The bed was too soft, the silence too complete. She kept expecting to wake up back in her cramped room with the leaking roof and rats scratching in the walls. But morning came with a gentle knock, a housekeeper bringing breakfast on a silver tray. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, freshly squeezed orange juice. Olivia stared at it, remembering the days she'd skipped meals entirely. Miss Mensah. Mr. Okonkwo's voice came through the intercom. Mrs. Grace requests your presence in the study. We have visitors. Visitors. The word sent ice down her spine. She dressed quickly in one of the simple but elegant outfits Mrs. Grace had provided, a navy blue dress that actually fit properly. When she entered the study, Mrs. Grace sat behind a massive mahogany desk, looking every inch the billionaire matriarch she truly was. But it was the three people standing across from her that made Olivia's breath catch. A man in his 50s wearing an expensive agbada, his face twisted in barely concealed rage. Beside him, a younger woman dripping in gold jewelry, her lips pulled into a sneer. and a thin man in glasses, clutching a briefcase like a shield. "Aunt Grace," the older man said, his voice syrupy sweet but his eyes cold. "We've been so worried about you. When you disappeared, we searched everywhere." "Did you search the gutter on Ballaghan Street, Brother Kenneth?" Mrs. Grace's voice could have cut glass. "Because that's where you left me to die." Kenneth's smile faltered. "Aunt, your illness made you confused. We would never." "Liar." Mrs. Grace slammed her hand on the desk. Olivia jumped. "I have the medical reports. Traces of diazepam and haloperidol in my system. Drugs I was never prescribed. Drugs that made me appear demented while you and your greedy children positioned yourselves to steal my husband's legacy." The younger woman, Kenneth's daughter, Rita, stepped forward, her voice shrill. "You can't prove anything. You were sick, wandering the streets because you refused proper medical care." "I refuse to be locked in the psychiatric facility you arranged." Mrs. Grace stood, and despite her small frame, she dominated the room. "The one where Dr. Olyamide, your paid puppet, would have declared me incompetent. How much did you pay him, Kenneth? How much was my sanity worth?" The thin man with glasses cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Nwosu, I'm the family attorney. Perhaps we should discuss this calmly." "You're fired," Mrs. Grace said flatly. "Mr. Okonkwo has already filed complaints with the Bar Association about your role in this conspiracy. I suggest you hire your own lawyer." Kenneth's mask finally cracked. His face went purple with rage. "You ungrateful woman. Emmanuel left me in charge of the company operations. I built half of what we have. You're just his widow. You don't know anything about running a business empire." "No," Mrs. Grace said softly, dangerously. "But I know about loyalty. I know about integrity. Things you never learned." She nodded to Mr. Okonkwo, who placed a stack of documents on the desk. "Forensic accounting has uncovered some interesting transactions, Brother Kenneth. Shell companies in your children's names. Property purchases that don't match your declared income. Contracts awarded to your friends at triple the market rate." She smiled, cold and sharp. "Emmanuel's empire is bleeding money, and you're the leech." Rita's face went pale. "Daddy, shut up." Kenneth snarled at his daughter, then turned back to Mrs. Grace. "You can't do this. The board will never support you. They all know you've been unstable. Half of them voted to have you declared incompetent." "Half the board you bribed, you mean?" Mrs. Grace said. She looked at Olivia, who'd been frozen by the door, watching this family warfare unfold. "Olivia, come here please." Olivia approached on shaking legs. Mrs. Grace took her hand. "This is Miss Olivia Mensah. She saved my life when all of you left me to rot. She will be my personal healthcare manager and my most trusted advisor. Whatever decisions I make, she will witness. Whatever documents I sign, she will review." Kenneth's laugh was ugly. "A nobody nurse? You're putting a street girl in charge of family business." "No," Mrs. Grace said quietly. "I'm putting someone with a conscience in a position of trust. Something none of you understand." She pressed a button on her desk. Security guards entered. "Escort my brother and his parasites out. They're banned from this property until further notice. If they return, call the police. You'll regret this." Kenneth shouted as the guards gripped his arms. "We'll fight you. The whole family will fight you. You're a crazy old woman who sees enemies everywhere." Mrs. Grace waited until they were dragged out, their shouts echoing through the marble halls. Then she sank into her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. "So it begins," she whispered. "Wow. The battle lines are drawn. Do you think Mrs. Grace can win against her own family? What would you do if your relatives betrayed you like this? Drop your comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story." That evening, Olivia found Mrs. Grace standing by the window overlooking the garden, her silhouette framed against the setting sun. "You should have let me leave," Olivia said softly. "I don't belong in this world, Mrs. Grace. Your family, they'll come after me too." Mrs. Grace turned, her eyes weary but determined. "They already are, my dear." Mr. Okonkwo received 3 threatening phone calls this afternoon. Anonymous, of course. Warning me that my new puppet should watch her back. Olivia's blood ran cold. "Then I should go." "I can't." "Sit." Mrs. Grace's voice was gentle but firm. "Let me tell you a story about my husband, Emmanuel." She moved to the leather couch, patting the seat beside her. Olivia sat reluctantly. Emmanuel Nwosu was born in a village so small it doesn't appear on most maps. His father was a palm wine tapper. His mother sold akara by the roadside. Mrs. Grace's voice grew soft with memory. When he was 12, a missionary teacher saw something special in him, gave him a scholarship to secondary school in Lagos. She pulled out a faded photograph from her pocket. A young man in oversized clothes, grinning despite worn shoes and patched trousers. He worked 3 jobs while studying engineering. Slept 4 hours a night. Sent every spare kobo back to his village. Mrs. Grace traced the photo with her finger. When he made his first million, you know what he did? Built a school in his village. Free education for every child. Because he never forgot where he came from. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Kenneth was his younger brother, spoiled, given everything Emmanuel had to fight for. Emmanuel paid for his university abroad, set him up in business, gave him positions he never earned. And this is how Kenneth repays that kindness. By trying to steal everything and erase Emmanuel's legacy. Olivia felt her own eyes burning. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you remind me of Emmanuel." Mrs. Grace gripped her hand. "You know what it means to have nothing. You know what it means to help others even when you're struggling yourself. That's why I chose you, Olivia. Not because you're a nurse. Because you have the heart Emmanuel had, the heart this family has lost." A sharp knock interrupted them. Mr. Okonkwo entered, his face grave. "Ma'am, we have a problem. The board meeting is scheduled for Friday, 3 days from now. Kenneth has been calling board members, spreading rumors that you're mentally unstable and being manipulated by Miss Mensah." He glanced apologetically at Olivia. "What kind of rumors?" Mrs. Grace's voice was ice. "That she's a con artist who targeted you on the streets. That she's drugging you to maintain control. That she's after the inheritance." He paused. "Kenneth has hired a private investigator to dig into her background." Olivia's stomach dropped. Her background. Her past. Mrs. Grace noticed her expression immediately. "Olivia, is there something you need to tell me?" The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. Olivia's hands trembled in her lap. When I was 19, I made a mistake." Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "I was desperate for university fees. A man approached me, said he could help. He gave me money, said it was a loan. But it wasn't." She forced herself to meet Mrs. Grace's eyes. "He was running an illegal gambling operation. I didn't know. When the police raided it, they arrested everyone there, including me. I spent 3 months in prison before they realized I wasn't involved in the operation. I was just another victim he'd scammed." The silence stretched like broken glass. "The charges were dropped," Olivia continued, her voice shaking. "But the arrest record? It's still there. Kenneth will find it. He'll use it to prove I'm a criminal, that you can't trust me." Mr. Okonkwo's expression was unreadable. Mrs. Grace sat perfectly still. Olivia stood, her legs barely supporting her. "I should pack my things." "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Grace. I should have told you before." "Sit down." The command was sharp. Olivia froze. Mrs. Grace stood, her small frame radiating power. Do you think I'm a fool, child? Do you think I would bring someone into my home, into my confidence, without investigating them first? She nodded to Mr. Okonkwo, who pulled out another folder. I know about your arrest. I know about the dropped charges. I know you spent 3 years working 3 jobs to pay back money you didn't even owe because your conscience wouldn't let you rest. Mrs. Grace's voice softened. I know you sent half your salary to your younger siblings so they could finish school. I know you've been the mother they lost when your parents died in that car accident. Olivia's tears finally broke free, streaming down her face. Your past doesn't scare me, Olivia. It proves exactly who you are. Someone who survives, who perseveres, who does the right thing even when life is brutally unfair. Mrs. Grace cupped her face. Kenneth will weaponize your history. He'll drag your name through the mud. Are you strong enough to withstand it? Olivia thought of her siblings, Divine and Blessing, safe in university because of her sacrifices. She thought of Mrs. Grace alone on those streets, abandoned by everyone who should have protected her. She wiped her tears and straightened her spine. Yes, she said firmly. I'm strong enough. Mrs. Grace's smile was fierce and proud. Then let's show these vultures what real strength looks like. Olivia's secret is out. But will it destroy everything, or make her stronger? What do you think Kenneth will do next? Comment your predictions below. Like and subscribe. Friday morning arrived like a storm. Olivia stood in front of the mirror in her new office. Yes, Mrs. Grace had given her an actual office in the Nwosu Holdings headquarters. She wore a tailored grey suit that Mrs. Grace had insisted she accept, her hair pulled back professionally. But her hands still shook as she adjusted her collar. You look like you belong here, Mrs. Grace said from the doorway. She wore traditional attire, a stunning purple iro and buba with gold embroidery. War clothes, Olivia thought. Armor disguised as elegance. I feel like I'm going to throw up, Olivia admitted. Good. That means you understand what's at stake. Mrs. Grace moved beside her, their reflections side by side. Kenneth will attack you personally today. He'll show that arrest record to every board member. He'll paint you as a criminal manipulating a vulnerable old woman. Maybe I shouldn't be in the meeting. You must be in that meeting. Mrs. Grace's eyes flashed. If you hide, they win. If you stand beside me with your head high, we show them that shame only has power when we accept it. The boardroom was on the 20th floor, all glass walls and leather chairs surrounding a massive oval table. 12 board members were already seated when they entered. Olivia recognized Kenneth immediately. He sat at the head of the table like he already owned it, Rita beside him wearing a smug expression. Every eye turned to them. The whispers started immediately. Good morning, everyone, Mrs. Grace said calmly, moving to the opposite head of the table. She gestured for Olivia to take the seat directly to her right, a position of honor and trust. Kenneth's smile was venomous. Aunt Grace, how refreshing to see you. And you've brought your companion. Miss Mensah is my healthcare manager and trusted advisor, Mrs. Grace said coldly. She has every right to be here. Does she? Kenneth opened a folder, sliding papers across the table. Because according to this police report, your trusted advisor is a convicted criminal with a history of fraud. The murmurs grew louder. Board members leaned forward, examining the documents. Olivia's face burned, but she kept her head up. Mrs. Grace had prepared her for this. The charges were dropped, Mrs. Grace said firmly. Miss Mensah was a victim of fraud herself, not a perpetrator. The police report clearly states. Charges dropped due to insufficient evidence, Kenneth interrupted, reading dramatically. How convenient. Tell me, Aunt Grace, how much has she stolen from you already? How much money has disappeared since this street girl moved into your home? Enough. Mrs. Grace's voice cracked like a whip. She stood, commanding the room. You want to talk about theft, Kenneth? Let's talk about the 15 million naira missing from the Infrastructure Development Fund. Let's discuss the shell company registered in Rita's name that received payments for construction projects that were never completed. Kenneth's face went rigid. Mr. Okonkwo entered, carrying thick binders. He began distributing them to each board member. Forensic accounting reports, Mrs. Grace continued. Bank statements. Email correspondence. For the past 3 years, Kenneth has been systematically embezzling from this company. The total so far? 240 million naira. The room erupted. Board members flipped through the documents, their faces shifting from shock to fury. These are lies, Kenneth shouted, standing. Fabricated documents. She's the one who's been compromised. The documents have been verified by 3 independent accounting firms, Mr. Okonkwo said quietly. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit has already been notified. Investigators will arrive Monday morning. Rita grabbed her father's arm, her face white with panic. Daddy, you said this was handled. You said there was no trail. Shut up. Kenneth snarled at his daughter, then whirled on Mrs. Grace. You vindictive witch. After everything this family did for you. This family. Mrs. Grace's laugh was bitter. You mean after you drugged me? After you dumped me on the streets like garbage? After you tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so you could steal my husband's life's work? She pulled out another folder, this one containing medical records. Dr. Olivia has confessed. The psychiatric facility you arranged? He's provided written testimony about how you paid him 50 million naira to declare me insane. Her voice dropped, deadly quiet. You tried to bury me alive, Brother Kenneth. But I survived. And now I'm taking back everything you stole. Kenneth's face transformed into something ugly and desperate. You can't do this. I have connections. I have friends in government. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy that little nobody you're hiding behind. Mr. Nwosu. A new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned. 2 police officers stood in the doorway, their expressions professional but stern. Kenneth Nwosu, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and attempted kidnapping. You have the right to remain silent. The room watched in stunned silence as Kenneth was handcuffed. Rita sobbed openly, but no one moved to comfort her. As the police led him away, Kenneth's eyes locked on Olivia with pure hatred. This isn't over, he hissed. You think you've won? You're nothing but a street rat playing dress-up. I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. But Olivia didn't look away. For the first time since entering that boardroom, she smiled. I know exactly what I am, she said clearly. I'm someone who helped a dying woman when no one else would. What are you? Kenneth had no answer as the doors closed behind him. Justice served. But is Kenneth really defeated, or is this just the beginning? What do you think happens next? Drop your comments and predictions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. 3 months later, Olivia stood in the same garden where Mrs. Grace had first told her about Emmanuel's humble beginnings. But today, the garden was filled with people. Over 200 children from the Nwosu Foundation Scholarship Program, their families, teachers, and community leaders. A massive banner hung between 2 trees, Emmanuel Nwosu Memorial Clinic and Education Center, grand opening. Olivia wore a simple yellow dress, her natural hair styled in twists. She no longer felt like an imposter in nice clothes. She'd earned her place here through hard work, loyalty, and courage. Nervous. Mrs. Grace appeared beside her, leaning lightly on an elegant walking stick. More fashion than necessity these days. Her health had improved dramatically with proper care and rest. Terrified, Olivia admitted with a smile. I'm about to give a speech in front of all these people. You've faced worse. You faced Kenneth's lawyers, the media circus, and those horrible journalists who tried to dig up every mistake you ever made. Mrs. Grace squeezed her hand. This is the easy part, telling the truth about kindness. The past 3 months had been brutal. Kenneth's arrest had made headlines across Nigeria. The media had descended like vultures, and Olivia's past had been splashed across newspapers and blogs. Criminal nurse manipulates billionaire widow. That had been the kindest headline. But something unexpected had happened. People had rallied to her defense. Former patients from the community clinic where she'd worked had come forward with stories of her compassion. Her siblings had given tearful interviews about how she'd sacrificed everything for their education. Even strangers had defended her on social media, sharing their own stories of overcoming past mistakes. The truth had a power that Kenneth's lies couldn't match. Kenneth was now serving a 12-year prison sentence. Rita had fled to London, her assets frozen. The corrupted board members had been removed and replaced with people who actually cared about Emmanuel's vision. And Mrs. Grace had transformed her pain into purpose. Ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Okonkwo's voice boomed through the speakers. Please welcome Mrs. Grace Nwosu and Miss Olivia Mensah. The applause was deafening. Olivia walked to the podium on shaking legs, Mrs. Grace beside her. Mrs. Grace spoke first, her voice strong and clear. My husband Emmanuel believed that kindness was not weakness. It was the greatest strength any person could possess. He built this empire not through greed or cruelty, but through compassion and hard work. She turned to Olivia, tears shining in her eyes. This young woman embodies everything Emmanuel stood for. When I was at my lowest, dying on the streets, abandoned by my own family, she stopped. She didn't see a homeless woman. She saw a human being who needed help. She shared the little she had. She gave her time, her care, her heart. Mrs. Grace took Olivia's hand and raised it high. Today, we open this clinic in Emmanuel's name, a place where anyone, regardless of their wealth or status, will receive quality healthcare. And we launched the Olivia Mensah Scholarship Fund. 50 full scholarships for nursing students from poor families who demonstrate not just academic excellence, but compassion and character. Olivia's tears fell freely now. I don't know what to say. Say what's in your heart, Mrs. Grace whispered. Olivia faced the crowd, seeing her siblings Divine and Blessing in the front row, seeing former patients who'd become friends, seeing children who would benefit from Emmanuel's legacy. When I helped Mrs. Grace, I wasn't thinking about rewards or recognition, she said, her voice cracking with emotion. I was just doing what my mother taught me, that we help each other because we're human, because compassion costs nothing but means everything. She wiped her tears, smiling through them. I was poor. I made mistakes. I've been broken and rebuilt more times than I can count. But those struggles taught me that kindness is never wasted. Every small act of compassion ripples outward in ways we can't imagine. She looked at Mrs. Grace, at this incredible woman who'd turned betrayal into blessing. Mrs. Grace didn't just save my life. She showed me that our worth isn't determined by our bank accounts or our past mistakes. It's determined by how we treat others when no one is watching. By what we do when helping costs us something. The applause erupted again, but Olivia barely heard it. She was thinking of that morning 6 months ago, when she'd seen a sick homeless woman and made the simple choice to stop and care. One choice. One act of kindness. It had changed everything. Epilogue. 2 years later, the Olivia Mensah Scholarship Fund had helped 300 nursing students. The Emmanuel Nwosu Memorial Clinic had treated over 15,000 patients, all free of charge. Olivia had completed her advanced nursing degree, funded by Mrs. Grace. She now directed the clinic while serving on the board of Nwosu Holdings. Her siblings had graduated university with honors. Divine was studying medicine. Blessing was pursuing engineering, just like Emmanuel Nwosu once did. And Mrs. Grace? She'd become a national advocate for elder abuse prevention, her story inspiring new laws protecting vulnerable seniors. On quiet mornings, Olivia still walked through the neighborhood where she'd first met Mrs. Grace. But now, instead of one nurse helping one homeless woman, there were mobile clinics, outreach programs, and a community transformed by the radical belief that every human being deserves dignity and care. Kenneth had tried to bury both of them. Instead, they'd planted seeds that grew into forests. Because kindness is never wasted. And compassion always, always, comes home.